All right. Well, welcome everybody. I think I know everybody, but I'm Andrew Spector, Senior Fellow at the Patterson Foundation, and I'm one of four members of the Patterson Foundation's AI Squad, which is composed of myself, Kira Lewis, Beth Duda, and Jennifer Abbott. And Jennifer, unfortunately, is not able to be here today, but she's been a super involved and committed member of the AI Squad. Um, Today, we're having a short sort of conversation about artificial intelligence meets TPF excellence. Kira, can you go to the next slide, please? So the framing of today is this is not supposed to be like a 60-minute training on AI. Instead, in preparation for this, we shared with you all some principles and guidelines that the AI squad has formulated, really in response to a survey that we sent out to TPFers several months ago, as well as some plans for data governance. And we want to be able to share a little bit more about both of those documents, answer some questions that you have. And so those are represented in the first two bullets there of the framing. The third bullet, ethical and effective AI use, that's really me trying to answer all the great questions that you all put into your registration forms. Then we'll have some time for some Q&A, and then we'll talk about next steps. Um, all of this is rooted around what the AI squad has been working on, which is how can TPF explore artificial intelligence in a way that maximizes its potential and minimizes its risk. And as TPF always evolves with the times and with what can drive more impact, it's important that we're evolving alongside AI as it evolves rapidly. So um, to kick us off, we're going to do a very quick question of the day. Kira, can you go to the next slide? And so Kira, in a moment, is going to put this into the chat. The question is, what's one word to describe your current relationship with AI? So you're just going to say your name and the initiative or initiatives you work on, and one word to describe your relationship with AI. I'll start off. Andrew Spector, Senior Fellow at the Patterson Foundation. I work on a lot of initiatives, so I can't specify which one, but especially AI Squad. And one word to describe my relationship with AI is intrigued. I'm going to pass it to Kiera.
Hello, everyone. Kiara Lewis. I get to work with a lot of you on a lot of different initiatives. My word would be evolving.
Thank you, Kiera. Deborah? Oh, you're muted.
Laying. Sorry for the delay. Deborah Jacobs. I lead the Patterson Foundation, and my word is optimistic.
Mm, thank you. Larry?
My name is Larry Clark. I'm with March Mission Ignition, and I think it's more like speed dating.
Speed dating with a hyphen. Okay, we'll count it. Brian?
I'm gonna steal. This is Brian Reese. I'm do agriculture in the future, and I'm going to steal Deborah's and add tentatively.
Hmm. Lindsay?
Name is Lindsay Smith, and I work on an array of different initiatives with the Patterson Foundation, and I am excited.
Thank you. David?
Hello, David Piketty. I would say learning, a beginner, a newbie.
Awesome. Thank you. Beth?
Beth, I'm the director of the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading and A Walk to Respect. And my word is amazed.
Marla?
I'm also Marla Smith, and I'm also a lot of Suncoast grade level reading or DA4A. But mine's very simple. Wow. Just wow.
Yeah, definitely. Sherry Ayler?
I'm a consultant with TPF over several initiatives. My word is curious.
Hmm. Renee?
I'm Renee with the Patterson Foundation, work for several different initiatives, and my word for AI is helpful.
Joni?
Joni Sparky Hansen, Digital Navigator for the Patterson Foundation, experimenting.
Shalia?
Good afternoon, everyone. Shalia Moore Hayes, SCGOR, and my word is going to be empowered.
Alicia Chalmers?
Good morning, Alicia Chalmers, and I'm a consultant with Aspirations to Actions in DeSoto County Ahead, and my word is engage.
Thank you. Erica Kelly.
Hello, Erica here. I'm gonna say two words, cautiously curious.
Okay, it's cheating, but we'll take it. Thank you, Erica. Alicia Exantis.
Hi, I'm Alicia Exantis. I am with multiple initiatives, and my word is suspicious.
Carol.
Carol Kranitz. I work on various initiatives and I'm excited.
Maribel.
Good morning. I am a consultant with the Patterson Foundation working on digital access for all, the Digital Navigator program, aspirations to actions, tech excellence, and who knows what else will pop up. So my word for how I feel about AI right now is exploratory.
Stacy Sternberg.
So communications coordinator, and my word is experimenting.
Okay, a couple experimenting. Chelsea Palmer.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Palmer, and I am with the CPR-R. My word is learning.
Awesome, thank you. And Leah's iPhone said in the chat, SCGLR, voter red, CPRR, and more with an emoji with the sweating coming down the forehead. And then Leah's word is uncomfortable. And last but not least, Rachel, who also wrote in the chat, SCGLR, and then her word is conflicted. Awesome. Thank you all. That was actually extremely helpful to hear where people are at and a full range of emotions and feelings from people that are exploring and learning, those that are just wowed, and those that are maybe a little more skeptical. And I think all of those emotions and feelings towards AI, we're probably all holding them to an extent. We only had one word to choose from, but they all are definitely valid. Kira, can you go ahead and share the screen again, please? Awesome. So I'm not going to go ahead and read off for you the entire principles and guidelines document. Instead, that's something you can feel free to do. You may have already done in preparation for this, or you can feel free to do on your own time. Instead, we wanted to use this as a chance to just give you an overview of how we put it together and the key takeaways you should have. And then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end to talk in more detail. So first off, when the AI squad developed our principles and guidelines, we wanted to root it first in listening to TPF. And that's what I mentioned before. We conducted the survey of TPFers to hear from you. What are you currently doing with AI? What are you not doing? How do you feel about it? What are your hopes? What are your concerns? What do you expect from TPF? And we wanted to find the right balance of three things: maximizing AI's potential, approaching it with integrity, and also joyful stewardship. And so we thought the right way to approach like an AI policy per se was to not create a policy. It was instead to create a set of principles and guidelines so that folks felt comfortable and excited experimenting and using AI, and at the same time to have a set of principles and guidelines for how to do so in a way that's effective and ethical. So if there are two like most important takeaways you take away from this whole call when it comes to our principles and guidelines, I think it's these two things. And I think if you bake down most AI policies from most organizations around the world right now, it's a variation of these two things. One is to be mindful of what you put into AI. So, right, we'll talk more about that in a moment, but you just want to be careful about the kinds of information that you're putting into AI. And it depends on a few different factors. We'll talk more about that later. And then two is, for our case, ensuring TPF excellence. There's AI is a chance to take your work and your learning and your impact to the next level. And it also can be a backtracking. And so when we're using AI, we want to be able to using it in a way that is as impactful as possible. And we'll talk more about that too. But I think those would be the number one and number two things you should be taking away from this. Next slide, Kira. So that's what I just mentioned before: potential plus integrity plus joyful stewardship. The three principles that we carved out, we kind of cheated a little bit. We put caring, contributing, and creating into one. And really what we wanted to highlight here is that people, humans, are at the heart of our work. And we want to use AI in a way that centers humans. And so we want to center humans by using AI to increase our impact. If we care about humans, then we can contribute to helping make their lives better and use AI to create things that get us there. And the additional piece I'll add in is that part of caring for humans is caring for our world, our environment. And so AI does have an environmental impact, and it's something that we want to keep in mind as an organization. The connecting piece is about connecting right back to the Patterson Foundation's mission around fostering wide participation. We want to use AI to deepen connections among people, organizations, and communities. And so to us, that means using AI in a way that helps us connect with people, not separate. And then also, in the spirit of digital access for all, working to ensure fair access to AI. And by connecting relevant people and organizations to the right training and resources. The third one is around collaborating. And again, we don't want AI to become a barrier to collaboration. We want it to use it to enhance collaboration. And part of collaboration is trust. And trust comes from um, real relationships with other humans. And part of having real relationship with other humans is things like transparency. And so we want to be transparent about our AI use, and we want to use it in a way that's ethical. And so when we collaborate with others and with AI, we want to be sensitive of key ethical challenges like AI use and privacy and security, bias, using reliable tools, and being inclusive. Kira, next slide, please. So we put forth 5 guidelines, and we also sent out ahead of time, there's sort of like 10 ways to use AI with TPF excellence. The 5 we have specifically in the principles and guidelines documents are: one, explore with intentionality. And that's the 2 main components of that are explore and intentionality. So the explore piece is that we want TPFers to explore and experiment. That is the number one way to get better at AI and to develop an informed opinion about which AI tools are the best for which purposes. You have to experiment, but also do so with intentionality. Don't just use them. We want TPFers to be using them with a critical eye. Which AI tools am I liking for which purposes? Which ones are putting out certain policies? Which ones are having what sort of environmental impact? So just being aware of when you're experimenting, how you're doing so, which connects to number 2, which is around choosing tools and agents wisely. So just do a little bit of research before you start using a tool about what it's known for, what the company's policies are, how they're interacting with their environment and with their community. And be aware of ethical questions, like I mentioned before, like privacy and security and bias and environmental impact. And just be aware of the third piece, which is around protecting privacy. What we have, this is where we get the most explicit in the principles and guidelines, which is you really shouldn't be inputting any confidential, private, or personally identifiable information into AI's tools and agents. And a way around that is you can kind of reframe your prompts into AI by using examples or general scenarios or like sort of fake information that's still providing the same data. But if you aren't using a paid subscription to an AI tool or agent, then you likely are like you're the product, not necessarily the customer. And so it's just important to be aware of that. And still at the same time, the company might say that you're not, if you have a paid subscription, that everything is private. And you also can't be totally confident about that either. So you want to just be really careful what's going into this quote unquote black box of AI, because even the companies in many circumstances don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. So you have to just be careful what you're putting in there. Fourth, which I mentioned already, which is ensuring TPF excellence. The reality is that if you're using AI, you are still the author. And so you don't ever want to just plug something into AI, plug something out and submit it. You always have to review it for accuracy, clarity, and tone. This is not in the guidelines, but something emerging in the AI world is what's called the 70-30 rule, and that like 70% of a product you work with AI should be your human work, and 30% can be AI. I think whether it's 70-30, 60-40, 80-20, I think the point is the same, which is that you as the human should be the one that's really driving the partnership with the AI, and they're supporting you in getting to whatever outcome you're trying to get to with your project. But you need to still have a sense of um, what does excellence look like for you and for TPF, and not letting AI use its genericness and so on to sort of lower the level of what your quality would be like if you're working without it. And then lastly, learn, share, evolve. That's because we're so early on in this. I've met with a number of AI leaders around the country at this point, and there is just not a best practice yet about how to learn or how to use AI, how foundations or nonprofits should learn to or start using AI. And so please learn, share with the AI squad and other people at TPF what you're learning, and let's continue to evolve together. Kira, next slide. Okay, TPF data governance. So why data governance and what does that even mean? So data governance, when you start researching AI, a lot of the organizations that are preparing organizations to think about AI, they say get really good about your data governance, meaning um, what kind of data are you collecting? How are you storing it? How are you managing it? How quote unquote healthy is your data? And then what are your policies about how people engage with that data? And the reason we put together the AI squad put together this data governance plan is because of the relationship between data and AI in two different directions. One is that we need to be intentional about what kind of data we're willing to put into AI tools and agents because of privacy concerns. And then two is that if you're creating your own like custom GPT or AI, that's only as good as the data you have as an organization. So being careful both about the AI the information you put into an AI tool and the data you have so you can use it with AI. Both of those things are really important. And so I'm not going to go ahead and read through the data governance document, but the most important things for you to be aware of are really around data sensitivity and knowing if the kind of data you're handling is low sensitivity, medium sensitivity, or high sensitivity. Most of the data that most TPFers are engaging with on a daily basis is low sensitivity. And so that kind of information, there is no issue with that being plugged into an AI tool. Those are things like publicly available information already, like the number of books that are distributed through This Book is Cool, or the attendance numbers at a Digital Access for All webinar. Those are super low sensitivity that are already public. Blog posts are another example. Um, it becomes a little bit more sensitive when we get into things like nonprofit partner contact information or certain meeting notes or draft materials. We want to be a little more careful about that level of sensitivity. And then the high sensitivity stuff, which only applies to really a couple TPFers, are things like staff compensation, budget details, and endowment financials and payments. So more of this is in the data governance document, but the key for you is to be thinking about just being aware of the kind of data that you have and how you should be using it in what circumstances. Kira, next slide, please. Okay, great. Y'all sent in some really great registration questions in the registration form. And so I synthesized those questions into categories, and I'm going to go ahead and do my best to answer them. And then we'll move into on the spot Q&A. So, Kira, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so there are a number of questions about privacy, and the questions basically were around how do we use AI in a way that protects our privacy and TPF's privacy. So one is what I said before, which is you want to be mindful of your inputs into AI. You want to look at your privacy settings both with your the AI tools that you're using. You can go to the settings and see does it have a memory of our conversation, which you can choose to keep or not keep. That's up to you. But you want to look at the privacy settings and see what kind of information it's tracking from you. And then you also want to look at the settings for the websites that you already use. Websites like Google and Facebook and so on, they have automatic, and LinkedIn, they've automatically put your data, they've automatically checked off for you already in most cases using your data to train AI. So you want to go into your settings and you can, I'm happy to help, but also you can do a quick Google of like, is LinkedIn taking my data for AI and and where in settings can I change that for that not to happen? Um, but you want to be checking your privacy settings. You want to use secure tools and agents. That's something you want to, I probably should have put secure in apostrophes because I think it's still not clear how secure some of these tools and agents are. But you want to do a little bit of research before, before you're choosing a specific tool or agent. And the AI squad is here to help if you're thinking through what do I use or don't use, but also doing some searching on Google without using AI might help you identify some articles that can help you think through, okay, which ones are good in which circumstances, and should I do a paid subscription, that sort of thing. And that brings me to my fourth point, which is considering paid accounts. Those at this point seem like one of the best ways to ensure that the data that you're plugging into the AI tool is as secure as possible, but that's also a judgment call based on your personal budget and based on if you're handling certain sensitivities of data. Next, Kira. We had a question about how do you determine the efficacy of an AI tool or agent? And my two notes here is that it depends on your objective. The most surefire way to figure out if something is effective is you play around with it. But it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Just as an example, Google's Notebook LM, that's sort of known for being really good at taking a PDF, like a long document, and being able to synthesize it for you. Whereas there are other platforms that are really good at strategic thinking. Other ones are good at data analysis. Other ones are good at image generation. So it sort of depends on which AI tool that is sort of like known to be like the best right now. And really through some Google searching, reading some articles, you can figure it out, but also you'll get to know yourself. And that I think actually that's probably the best way because that means you're engaging with the AI tool in a way that's responsible. You're thinking critically about the outputs you're getting from the AI. And the second piece is that there are emerging key performance indicators from tests that organizations are doing. The part of the AI race happening between the different companies like Anthropic and OpenAI is that there are now standard benchmarks for how fast AI can do certain tests. And so those KPIs are indicating the quality. So just recently, Google's Gemini like outperformed everybody else, which is making OpenAI do like a code red situation because they need to catch up to how good Gemini is. That doesn't mean Gemini is perfect or better in on every single task. It just means that it's it's winning on certain marks from these KPIs. There was multiple questions about the sustainability of AI tools and agents. I did some research into this, and the reality is that it's hard to calculate so far, in part because you need to define the boundaries of emissions. And if you're considering the full life cycle of emissions, that means you're considering the mining that's required to, for example, to set up a data center, the manufacturing of that data center, what the use is both by the company and by yourself, and then the disposal of that in the long term. And so it's hard to tell. I think as a rule of thumb, I think the reality is that AI is using a lot of energy. So you want to be mindful of how often you're using it and for what purposes, and be paying attention to if there are companies that are emerging as more um, environmentally friendly. But I did some research in preparation for this, and I did not find a strong list of, hey, these companies are being more environmentally sustainable about AI than others. Perhaps that'll emerge, but I'm not seeing it yet. Next, Kira. There's a question about how to fact check AI. Again, the reality is that there's not a foolproof way to fact check AI. One way that you can help sort of be proactive is what's called prompt engineering, which is just a fancy way of saying being really smart about how you prompt AI. So instead of just saying, I would like you to write a blog post for me about my experience at a digital access for all web station. Instead, you can do things like, and this would be for like a like a longer AI training, but you can do things like, hey, I am a consultant for a private foundation. You are an expert in blog writing and digital inclusion, and you only use trustworthy sources and you always fact check everything before you provide it to me. So you can engineer a prompt to the AI, telling the AI the identity that it has and the parameters it has around how it engages with you. And that can be a way to be a little more proactive to ensure that the AI really is giving you quality responses, and still you can't be sure. So you should always be skeptical by default. You want to pay attention to nuance and context. You should know that AI is programmed right now to be agreeable with you. I do know of one foundation that's lobbying AI companies to help them make their AI tools and agents less agreeable because they're concerned about the long-term impacts of that on our society. But for right now, AI tools are generally agreeable with you, and so that impacts their objectivity, and you want to check and cross-reference sources. Some of AI tools are better than others about telling you where they got their information, but you can always ask them, how did you come to this opinion? Where did you get your sources? And then sometimes they still make up sources, so you even want to check those sources. So you just have to be really careful, and that's eventually it's a judgment call for you about, are you spending more time fact checking AI than you would have if you did the work on your own. I think it's a tension that we're all going to have to deal with as we experiment with it, and as AI improves over time. Next, Kira. Somebody asked about using AI professionally in ways that help but don't hurt. My take on this is that it just depends on the person, the project, and the task. Um, Really, that's what it is. It depends on who you are, what you're working on. If you determine AI is going to help you or it has the potential to hurt you. Um, I can say personally that in some of my early experiments with I think it ended up hurting me because it took me longer to do tasks I could have done on my own, or it spit out. It helped me create something that didn't feel totally like me. Um, as I've progressed in my AI journey, I think I've become clearer for myself about when AI is most helpful for me on which tasks. And so I'm finding it to be very effective in learning about things and being a strategic thought partner. But it really depends on you, it depends on the project and task. Everybody has different skill sets and use cases depending on who you are and what you're working on. You do want to consider the long-term impact and critical thinking capacity. There are already studies that have emerged that are showing that overuse and uncritical use of AI is impacting our critical thinking ability. So that's not the AI's fault. Maybe it's a little bit the AI company's fault, but it's mostly, but a big part of it is our fault. Is that if we're using it in a way to be lazy, then we're going to impact our critical thinking. But if we're using it in a way to really elevate ourselves, we can use it in a way that it reaches its potential, which all is in the spirit of avoiding AI work slop. Don't turn, I think I mentioned this before, but this is a new term, which is what it sounds like, which is don't use AI to submit bad work. So you know what excellence looks like. And then when you find opportunities for efficiency or process improvement using AI, or to help you be more creative, or for thought partnership innovation, these are all ways or examples of how AI is being applied by people and organizations around the world, in ways that it can help professionally. Kira, next slide. Are there any situations when AI will be required by TPF? Not at this time. So that's period. And then I just wanted to add that may be helpful to know is that some companies around the country and around the world are requiring their employees, these are primarily for-profit companies, but requiring their employees to use AI. And so I offer that just because it is a valuable skill to learn. An early AI training I went to sort of talked about AI. They compared it to like the sewing machine, in that if you continued sewing by hand, while that matters in a lot of circumstances, if you failed to move on to the sewing machine, you're going to be left in the dust. And so you have to learn the skill. And it's not a perfect analogy, but it is an important skill to learn, because of you could be left behind, I think, as things speed up and a lot of people use it and find ways to use it more effectively, and as companies improve their AI tools and agents. Kira, next slide. Um, Another question was around like how can we use AI ethically? And so I just lift up these bullets here around like these are just like ethical questions for you to consider. So AI is a product of what's put into it, and so as humans, we are biased, and therefore the information we get from AI is also biased. So there's something we want to be aware of. There are definitely ethical concerns around privacy and surveillance. There's concerns around transparency and explainability, and that gets to the quote unquote black box that I was talking about before, is that AI companies don't always really know they don't you don't the black box of you don't know how AI is getting to what it's getting to. It's like sort of like it's unknown. So there are some policies that people are trying to push forward that to require AI companies to build in things into their tools, to require those tools to be able to explain like how they arrived at their like what they're putting out to you. But right now, things are not very transparent or explainable. There's questions around accountability and liability, like who should be accountable or liable when things go wrong related to AI tools and agents. There's questions around human oversight and autonomy. Are we just letting agents, like which tasks are appropriate for AI agents just to do, with what level of human oversight? There's some concerns around job displacement, security and misuse, and of course, we talked about environmental impact. I lift all these up not to say, oh my gosh, things are terrible, don't use AI. These are just ethical things for us to be aware of as we think about using it in a way that is ethical and responsible and effective. Next slide, please. There's a question about like when we should acknowledge use of AI as a resource. Um, our thoughts on this is that if you are taking direct content from AI or generating ideas with it, this doesn't really apply to us, but if you had like code or like coding data, um, then you would want to probably acknowledge that you're using AI. TPF right now, we're not allowing use of images or media. There's some real copyright concerns about how those images are being created. And then sometimes, if it's a massive edit, it would make sense to say that you've used AI. And I think that's a good sort of habit to be in mind. It's not something to be embarrassed by or to hide, but to be upfront with people when AI is taking up a significant portion of what you're doing, to be acknowledged that you used it as a resource. It's not really necessary if you're just using it for research, or if you're making like minor grammar or style enhancements. And the how will depend on what the output is. I think for me, I'm typically using AI when I'm in thought partnership around some sort of proposal for something. And so in that case, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll say that I worked on it in partnership with, say, ChatGPT, and here's how I used it. And the next level of that is saying like, hey, I used it for this. You could even share keep track of some of the prompts that you used. And then depending on in what situation you've used it, it should go somewhere probably, whether that's in the text or in an acknowledgement section or something like that. That's that would be valuable. Kira, next slide. Okay, that was a lot of me talking. I wanted to get through all of that. Kira, you can go ahead and get rid of the shared screen, and we'll just open it up for any Q&A about anything that we've talked about, whether that's the principles and guidelines, the data governance, or any of the questions that I just went through from the registration forms.
Just make a comment, Andrew. Thank you for the comments around asking it or prompting it about giving true information back to you. I mean, we're working on a project in New York City right now, and we ask it to give us similar projects in different states, and it actually made up 3 projects that don't even exist.
Mm-hmm.
But that prompt would have taken care of that. It's interesting. So
maybe it might have,
maybe,
but it better chance than not.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Joni?
I think it's great how um, they say to be polite and like say please. I always do because I mean I don't ask for anything and not say please. Whatever. And so I'm like, please, do this watercolor from the picture that I just uploaded. And then I read that uses so much power that it's costing billions of dollars to be polite.
Yeah, and that's a tension too, is because some research shows that being polite makes the AI actually like engage with you in a more effective way. And on the flip side, it has that environmental impact. So it's an ethical conundrum. Yeah, Brian, and then Stacy Sternberg.
Couple things. One, be polite. It's using AI, actually using the tool is about the same as streaming high def video. So if you watch videos, it's almost equally as bad. The real environmental impact comes from training new models so that they get better and better and better. That's where the serious power impact really plays out in the environment. But just like telling it to be truthful, which doesn't always work, you can actually tell it to be less agreeable as well. And that does work pretty well in my experience. So,
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Appreciate your clarity on the environmental impact piece and also about that advice. Thank you. Yeah, Stacy Sternberg.
Yeah, my question was also about the environmental part. And I saw this video up in Tampa and it was saying that it's going to be using a lot of our water for the debt to cooling off data plants. So I thought that was also, it's not just energy, it's also water.
Yeah, and it raises questions around like, so what's in our, if it's not always our personal use, but it's the companies that are creating the data centers and these tools, then what's within our sphere of control or influence to mitigate the environmental impact? I think yeah, it's an outstanding question. Larry?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for all of this. I think a lot of work has gone into just this presentation today, Andrew and the team, and it's really, really amazing the work that you've done. So thank you.
Thank you. What else? What other questions do we have? You don't have to, but yeah, Deborah?
If this is not appropriate, Andrew and Kara, let me know. But could we ask anyone who has had an AI conundrum to ask you about their AI conundrum that they'd like to have your counsel on or insight? I think examples help people understand how this plays out.
Sure.
Or if no one's had a conundrum, has someone had an inspirational moment or how you found AI was incredibly helpful in this situation? I think we're in the group sharing here to learn from each other.
Okay, this is Valerie. Sorry for the picture. I have my youngest granddaughter here, but I've used AI in several situations. One is I have asked for journal entries in accounting. I just wanted to test it out, and it would give me the exact journal entries of what I needed or what I wanted to see. Just testing, asking questions about different scenarios. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Valerie. Yeah, Beth.
Yes, some of you are aware that I have been using AI quite a bit to assist me in some of the writing I have to do, or I'm privileged to do, blogs and missives and communications with staff members and other CGLR communities. And I do have a paid version of Chat GPT. And so there's a lot of information that I have put in about Pop-up Neighbor and summer reading challenges and all kinds of things so that I now can say, I need a blog post about the most recent pop-up laundry, and we did this many families and this much laundry, and it will create a blog post. And then I can edit it rather than having to generate it from scratch. So I have found it to be a time saver. And I also enjoy being able to push back a little on it and say, that's not it. You didn't capture whatever. And having the opportunity to see many different versions before I land on the one that I will submit. But I very much enjoy working with Tallulah, my virtual assistant.
And I'll just add about Beth. I think Beth is a great example of like, Beth, you're open about your use of AI. And I think that is like part of using it in a way that's ethical and transparent and builds relationship. And so, yeah, I just want to shout out that I appreciate about that. I think it's a good model for others. Joni?
My assistant is Petunia. And, and I have no problem with giving her credit for helping me when I'm doing a blog. And I really enjoy it. And like I'll put in all the criteria, whether it's digital navigators, computers, how many were given out or whatever. And then it'll come out and I'm like, shorten it and make it a little friendlier, make it a little happier. Or if I do a picture, make it, darker, make it sunnier. I mean, it's just amazing how you can just kind of guide it around however you want. And that's just part of the fun of it. I have the free GPT, and I can only get like 3 uploads a day, but then I've done some of the other ones too. Other than GPT, what are some of the ones that you guys suggest for pictures and just basic like blog stuff?
I'd rather open that up to the group if other people have opinions about what they use or prefer for different tasks. Yeah, Shalia?
Hello, everyone. So I agree with Beth. When you have to do a lot of different types of writing, sometimes it's nice to have something that you've written before and ask it to kind of create something based off of your same tone. Because I was very hesitant about that, but I shared my word as empowered because it's been allowed me to be able to get a lot more done. I have to write reports that sometimes can be 15, 20 pages long. And what I was able to do is use a specific AI, I think it's called Bostonian or something like that, but it's specific to psychologists who use it in their work. So it's like the privacy, all that stuff. And I don't use my clients' names or anything like that. I'll say a 10-year-old child is exhibiting these types of things. And so instead of me having to go back and pull out my big thick DSM-5 or something, AI can and then can pull that stuff up for me. And so it's more tailored towards what I have to do for specifically for reports. And then of course I always go back and reread what it wrote. I'll say, hey, make sure you add this information because those are my personal observations. Those are my assessments that I gave. Those are things that I did in person, but I'm asking it to kind of construct it for me. So I'm not sitting having to create tables and charts and things like that. It helps me pull that information. So with that particular AI system, it's tailored specifically to helping me be able to create, reports that are confidential and legally abiding, when I'm using different diagnostic codes and things like that. So that's just for me personally.
Yeah, thank you, Shalia. Other people? Yeah, Stacy Sternberg.
It's definitely helpful. I capture the metrics for TPF for the social, but then when I'll plug in them and have it do the math. So and then I'll ask it questions about benchmarks and just certain things. But I do disclose that I use ChatGPT for that part, so it's good. And then also it's been really helpful to help me create outlines for papers. Just like being able to structure things has been really helpful.
Great. Jennifer Bush?
How do you fact check? Like, how do you know? I mean, one of the things you said is we need to be fact checking. Larry found that 3 of them weren't real. How do you figure that out other than doing your own research?
I don't, yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Couple things I think work better. Like if you're using something like Notebook LM, which Andrew mentioned, which I quite like, although I'm still playing around with it a lot. You can do deep research, and that usually tends to be much more accurate. You can also I mean, you need to check everything by hand yourself, no matter what. But you can also, I hate to do this, but you can run the output through another AI and ask it to fact check it, and that actually works surprisingly well.
Interesting.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends who teach AI things and all that, and they mostly run them through like they'll have 3 AIs that chat things that they use on a regular basis, and they'll run, if there's something important with data, they'll run it through multiples to see what the differences are and have them check each other out. But when you use Notebook LM, especially if you're creating an environment like a notebook that has all the information that's about that particular topic that you've gathered, then it tends to be very accurate, and it's also better at citing where it got the information because generally it's pulling the information from the things that you've uploaded or told it to pay attention to. And so it will point back, and then you can check those things yourself much easier than if you're just kind of doing a general chat.
Okay, thank you.
Any other thoughts on fact checking, or back to the other question about tools that you use for different purposes?
So I have used AI recently for a completely different purpose. And my husband left my car window open during the rain the other night. And I was at loss for what I could do to fix the water. And so I ended up putting it in Chat GPT, and it gave me a whole list of the things that I needed to do in what order. And it was actually very helpful. So in like a panic situation where you're like, I'm not sure what to do, it does help.
Thank you. Joni, you had your hand up again.
Yeah. One little response here. The first time I used it for a blog, a TPF blog, I almost felt like I was plagiarizing. I mean, I wasn't plagiarizing because I was putting in my information, but I almost felt like, oh, this is too easy. Because I mean, it came out real pretty. And because I'm not real good at the written word, I'm more of a detail person. Give me a Excel sheet and let me piddle with it. But to get in there and really do all that writing and make it look real nice like that, I was just like, wow, this AI has some good stuff.
Because we have a few minutes before we close out, are there any other things that I think, at least what I've heard from other organizations, and it might make sense for TPF to do too, is that having like a dedicated space where team members can just come together periodically and share how they're using AI and what they're learning. And so they're sort of kind of like what we do with a knowledge sharing session or Thrive and Dine, that sort of thing. But we have a few minutes here. Are there any other ways that people are using AI that just would be valuable to share with others? Yeah, Brian?
Sorry, me again. So I'm using Notebook LM, like I said, a lot, and I'm taking all the information from I can just upload the audio from interviews, or I can upload transcripts for all the discovery that I'm doing. I can point it at specific websites or specific web pages, and it will go and pull that information in. Um, Also, PDFs, images, you can upload almost anything in Notebook LM. And so every useful piece of information I'm putting into one notebook. So it is essentially, theoretically, I haven't really used it enough for anything amazing yet, but theoretically, it is going to be a much bigger expert on the topic than I am, hopefully. And then I can interact with it in order to pull out trends, to identify things, to tell it my thoughts and have it vet those based on the documents and the information that it has and all that. So that's what I think I find that the most promising. And Notebook LM was interesting because it was created in essence by Stephen Johnson, I think his name is. He's a nonfiction author, and he'd written about some tech stuff, and they Google asked him out to come out and work with them. And this was he said, I want to build a tool that is how I research and would make things a lot easier for my books. And that was Notebook LM. So, and they seem to be working on it a lot. So it's kind of one of the most iterated upon agent ideas that are out there right now.
That's cool. Yeah, I think one of the best use cases for me has been around when AI can be sort of like having a high IQ, like colleague that is just always there. So that what you're saying, Brian, really resonates with me. We'll go to Renee because you had your hand up, and then we'll close out.
I'm just kind of curious if there's AI programs that learn your voice. So, or to learn the way you write. So when I'm using AI to help me write, what I typically try to do is draft it out myself, and then I get AI to help improve it and stuff. If I go in there blank and say, "Hey, AI, can you write this?" then it's not in my voice. So, do some AI programs get to know you from using it so much and make things more sound like me?
Yes, and so just as an example, ChatGPT has memory. I think it depends if it's paid or not, how strong that memory is, but it gets to know you as a person. Um, in terms of like really getting to know your voice, that is best achieved by having like a custom GPT, which I have not made before, but I actually don't think it's that hard. I think you just have to like Google how to do it, and then I think it takes a long. Okay, maybe it's kind of hard, but you can do it, and you create like a custom GPT, and you can upload things that you've written before, and then you can teach it your voice, and then it's sort of customized around you. So there's sort of levels to how well it can get to know your voice.
Thank you.
I
Um,
can add to that, Renee. I spoke about Tallulah in the beginning. She didn't know my voice at all, but the more that I wrote and uploaded things that I had written before, the more she knows. So I can even now prompt it and say things like, "Put it more in my voice" or "less in my voice." I can put in the style of Beth Duda, and she creates work that actually sounds like it came from me.
So cool.
And Beth, do you use ChatGPT?
I do. I have a paid version of Chat GPT.
Thank you.
All right, Carol, real quick, and then we'll close out.
Real quick, third day after Thanksgiving, absolutely done with everything. Opened the refrigerator, gave ChatGPT a list of all of the things that were left over sitting in the refrigerator, and I said I need 4 new recipes to feed 10 people. And it was perfect.
So cool. yeah, one of the things I read was it this morning or yesterday or something. I think OpenAI is beginning to collaborate with Instacart so that you can come up with recipes within ChatGPT, and then that will send your grocery order through Instacart, so that you get those. So, I guess that's where we're heading. Okay, if we use it, Kira, can you just share your screen one more time just for us to close out? Great. So the next steps related to all this, one is just please keep experimenting on your own. Share what you're learning. I definitely, as we're having this conversation, it's making me think that there could be value in having some dedicated spaces to keep sharing. And then three is that we will be doing some trainings for TPFers in the new year. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, yeah, happy experimenting. And please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or comments, concerns, whatever it is. This is a work in progress, and we are not the know-it-alls here at the AI Squad. So we'll take anything you got as we keep moving this forward.